Before we jump in, here's what this video is really about. In the next few minutes, I want to walk through why treasury structure quietly breaks as companies grow, what that actually looks like in real world, and how AI changes the way treasury teams should think about, say, people, policies, and control, not just the tools, okay? Not just the tools. This isn't theory. It's about practical decisions that either keep things running smoothly as you scale, or slowly create risk you don't see until it's too late. All right. I am 𝗬𝗵𝗀𝗀, a finance and fintech consultant. Let's get started. You know what I have seen more times than I can count? A company starts growing fast. New customers, new markets, maybe a funding round. Everyone's focused on momentum. And then almost in the background, treasury starts to feel heavier. And that's not because the CFO isn't capable, okay? But because treasury is still running the way it did when the company was small, right? Same bank accounts, same approvals, same spreadsheets. And that setup might work at 5 or 10 million in revenue, but it doesn't hold up when complexity grows. This is usually where the cracks begin, okay? And this is where treasury structure quietly enters the conversation. What treasury structure really means. Treasury structure isn't exciting, but it's essential. Now, think of it as the operating system of your company's money, okay? And just like technology, you can't scale today's business on yesterday's system. So what does it do? At its core, treasury structure defines things like who owns cash visibility, who can move money, and how funding and investments are decided, and where financial risk is managed. See, to do that, some companies centralize everything, and others give local teams autonomy. Now, neither is automatically better in this case. So what matters is clarity and alignment with how the business actually operates. So it all depends on how the business operates, right? And that is how they choose their model. Now, this conversation has shifted recently, and that brings us to AI. Okay, and that's because treasury today isn't just about moving money anymore. So where does AI fit and where it doesn't? AI is changing treasury, but not in the way most headlines suggest or read these days. It is not replacing treasury professionals. AI is only replacing those blind spots. Okay, and when used well, what can AI do? It can improve cash forecasting accuracy, right? Or spot unusual payment activities. Help treasury teams act earlier instead of reacting late. But, and this part matters, okay? AI only works when the structure underneath it is solid, okay? So you got to have a solid structure. So if, for example, if no one clearly owns forecasting, no one owns forecasting, for example, or if approvals are not defined. Or if policies live in people's heads, AI just helps you make mistakes faster. Okay? And that is why I always say, don't just improve, evolve. So improving is layering tools on top of old processes, right? Evolving, however, is rethinking the structure so the tools actually work. Now, that brings us to the part people tend to overlook. Now, on to the policies that actually matter. Okay? A structure without policy is just an org chart. It is just an org chart. You got to have policies. And real treasury control comes from answering basic questions clearly. For example, who calculates daily cash, right? Who approves payments and at what thresholds, for example? Or what's the plan when the cash is tight, right? How do we invest excess cash? Liquidity first, yield second? See, this sounds obvious until you realize different teams often have different answers, okay? And that is why strong treasury teams document everything in a treasury operations manual, okay? In a treasury operations manual. Not for bureaucracy, but for their protection, okay? Not for bureaucracy, but for their protection. So what does it do? It becomes your training guide. It becomes your fraud protection prevention tool, a disaster recovery plan, and a foundation for automation and AI eventually, right? And so if AI is the engine, policy is the steering wheel, okay? Now, if your business is simple, you might get away with the lean setup for a while. So why does this matter more than you think? The moment you add multiple entities, international operations, debt and FX exposure, treasury structure becomes either a competitive advantage or a quiet liability, okay? And I have seen companies lose deals because they couldn't move cash quickly. I've seen others save millions because they understood risk early and acted accordingly. The difference was never intelligence. It was preparation. So here's the real takeaway. Don't wait for a crisis to rethink your treasury structure. Map what you have today. Document how decisions actually get made. And build something that can scale. Policy, people, and technology together. That's not over-engineering. That's just good stewardship of a business, okay? And if treasury feels heavier than it should be right now, that's usually your signal to evolve, not just improve. Thanks for watching.